Another webinar with Ryan and myself. So today we're obviously talking about the concrete pre and post pour process. Huge number of different examples of how this could be used, obviously out in the real world, and everyone's had a heap of pain with this in the past. But why don't you introduce yourself, Ryan?
Yeah, hi guys. For those of you who caught my webinar debut last time, my face is actually on the screen this time. I'm not talking to myself in the corner. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, Ryan Treweek. I'm one of the co-founders and directors here at Visibuild. I'm 17 years in industry before I made the move over here. Damien likes to joke that I haven't stood on fresh concrete for, I say maybe 8 to 10 years, but he'd probably say my whole career because I was more from a commercial side.
It's a bean counter. He sat in the office.
But the grey stuff's the most important stuff. It's liquid gold. So, I always loved the smell of fresh concrete. But this is actually a really good use case for the Visibuild product. There's a lot of stuff happening in a short space of time. You're going to have up to, 6 to 8 to 9 different stakeholders involved in a concrete pour. And depending on where you're pouring it, you could be doing that every 4 days to 5 days to 6 days. It's not a lot of time. There's a lot of moving parts, and that's just for your horizontal elements. You don't once you start throwing in your vertical elements, your core. If you've got a really big project, you're almost pouring concrete every day. So there's a lot of stuff to look after, and it's high risk stuff.
And for me, look, everyone who's met me before, Damien Quinn, one of the founders here at Visibuild. I guess the concrete pour process and how this is managed on construction projects was one of the really big emphases behind starting Visibuild, and when Sean and I were working together previously and managing a large structure package, is just number one, there's an enormous volume of admin work and paperwork that's involved in the process. But the reality was we were tracking and closing out Excel spreadsheets to track our folders to make sure we'd collected all of the information. But the majority of that information was ticks on a piece of paper that we collected from someone to satisfy a quality process. And we really saw there was an opportunity here to obviously improve that process, make it real time, get everyone who's actually out there taking part in this process, ensure they have the information they need at their fingertips, and ensure we can then track and monitor that process in real time and see exactly what's happening out in your sites. Have you had much experience with this process before, Ryan? Got any nightmares or anything you've had to deal with in the past?
A few might have been involved in a business that had a structural failure of sorts, I guess, that cost a lot of money, a lot of heartache. And we might touch on elements of that, but that really reinforces the like more the post-pour part of the whole process. And I think a lot of people really focused on pre-pour, rightly so. But post-pour is really important. It doesn't get given a lot of attention sometimes, but engineers should be checking after stripping to see where elements or how they're performing, bony concrete, stress cracking, anything like that. That might be a sign of other things that might have been missed or moved during the pour. So yeah, I've got my fair share of demons. And we're not here to have a therapy session for me on that, but it's an important subject.
It is. It's high risk, and it's not really appreciated until it goes wrong.
What about you, mate? Did you pour the wrong concrete at any point in time? Wrong, like the edges just turn up and you're like, just over there, boys, into the pump.
I'm not going to bring up any particular examples, but I think we've all been in those situations where you don't know until the test results come in, because you've collected the dockets off the back of the truck, everyone's filed them, a graduate back in the office has filed them, and the reality is we've all been sitting there at 28-day test time going, like, this isn't coming up to strength. Like, is a 56-day test result going to get us there? And thankfully, like the majority of times, things have come up to strength at 56 days. But it's not like it's not really something that's particularly comfortable that you want to be sitting through. Like, ideally, we've been really present through this process and understood what was going on during the process. And it's the other ones, the cast-ins. Like, we've all been there. We've missed critical services cast-ins in the slab. We've missed critical services penetrations through slabs, through walls, through cores, and we come back and core hole those later. And just because it was different from one pour to the next doesn't mean it couldn't have been captured if the process was managed better.
And there's certainly there's stacks of instances where you've had issues with traceability, particularly around concrete strength. And there's, I know there's jobs out there that have had holes cut in them like Swiss cheese after the fact to try and go back and ascertain what the actual concrete strength is. You've then got other stuff like puddle pouring around columns and all that sort of stuff with different concrete strengths. So it's a minefield sometimes, and it's difficult. So, but hopefully we're here to help.
So what we're going to go through today is we're going to do a little bit of work in the web app, and then Ryan and I are going to do a little bit of work on the mobile app. And we're going to give a few different points of view today. So obviously web app, we're looking at this from a management perspective and how we're overall managing that concrete pour process. And then the mobile experience, Ryan's going to take us through what it's like from a subcontractor's experience working out in the field. I'm going to take it through what the experience is like from a consulting engineer working out in the field, actually doing that pre-pour inspection out on site. And then we'll be able to see the results of that back on the web app. A few things I'm going to touch on really quickly. This is our company template library, our project template library. We're going to go into the details of the actual pour itself. We've got our overall template tracker where we're going to be able to see the status and how this closes out as we work through the process of closing out each of the pours. We've got our milestone tracker. We've got a sneak peek into our new matrix tracker, and I've got a couple of examples I'm going to show you on that one today. Little sneak peek over to this one here. But let's just start right back at the very start of this process. And we did a fair bit of work on this in the pre-sheet webinar. It was previous, and if you've missed that, jump on the website and give that one a view. But if I start off here at company level, one of the things we want to be doing as a business, and this is whether you're a head contractor or a subcontractor or a consultant, is setting up company templates that suit the style of projects you run in your business, that suit your management systems and your management plans and what you're expecting. And what that's going to result in is multiple different template types. And I think Ryan and I have both seen this through the last 4 years at Visibuild, is that some businesses will have 25 different inspection templates with different element types, and other businesses will have one. And I think we're probably in agreement in saying that you need different template types for different pour types and different pour situations. So if I have a look in here, for example, I filter this out to pre-pour. This is the Visibuild library. This is our demonstration account. So there's a couple of examples that we would run within here. But when we're talking of pre-pours, we've got to remember we've got precast elements as well. We've got piles, we've got retention systems, we've got pad footings and pile caps, slab on grounds, verticals, suspended slabs, cores. There's any number of different concrete elements that would happen on a project, and not all of these are treated equally. Today, we're going to spend a fair bit of time looking at the suspended slab process. So we have a look at, bring up pour here, for example. So you'll see the suspended slab PT slabs, and they're generally including the most number of stakeholders. And we'll dive into that one because it's going to be the most complicated, but the same process applies to foundation and retention piles, to the pile cap process and everything else. And all of these can be managed separately, and they can be managed independently or together as an overall system, depending on how you're tracking and running your project. If we jump into project level templates now, again, we went through this previously, but once we've created those templates at company level, we bring them down to a project by hitting new template here. Another little sneak peek here, you might have seen this in Sean's recent presentation. We now have the ability to, well, will shortly be released to the masses, the ability to generate templates from a file. So if you have an existing Word doc, Excel spreadsheet, PDF document that you're currently running in your systems, you will be able to generate that, upload that, let AI do the work, and actually generate a template out that you can then review and approve for the project. Really good, particularly as a subcontractor coming on board. If you haven't used the system before and you've got 10 or 15 existing templates in your portfolio, you can really rapidly build out your template library with that and bring it into Visibuild. We're not going to do that today. We could have obviously brought them in from a company library, but if we have a look in here today, we'll find that they're already in here. So look for pours. We can see that Visibuild, as the general contractor in this situation, has a number of different examples, and we've also got our subcontractors, consultants in here as well who are tied into the process. If I go into the concrete pour suspended slab, we can see here that we've got our overall concrete pour, we've got our pre-pour as a child inspection, and our post-pour as a child inspection. Seen this done heaps of different ways out in the field, and there's no really right or wrong way. We see examples of where we have during pour inspections in there as well. what we do think is really important in this process is separating out the post-pour elements from the pre-pour so that they can be tracked independently. And when we get a little bit into the weeds a bit later in the presentation, we'll show you how you can start to separate those elements out and filter out things like concrete test results and post-pour statuses. But it is important to separate those out. In a pre-pour, you can see here that the pre-pour itself has a concrete pour milestone linked to it. That's important. That milestone link was actually generated from the company level template and brought through to the project level template. And you can see here, the first few checks are relevant to admin associated with it, like what's the concrete mix design, attaching mud maps, drawings, RLs, Peno details, hole point for photographs.
Well, here's a good one, Damo. The actual concrete mix design at the top there. You know, a lot of people might just say, is the concrete mix approved? Yes or no? Or prompt someone to attach maybe an approval of the mix, which you don't want to do a lot of times. But some of these other things are actually quite important if you are wanting to surface this information in the future, particularly if you have to maintain like a concrete register for the project, where you need to record the different concrete strengths attributed to different elements. By doing this and, you know, enforcing that people actually enter that for every pour is a good way, and we can show you how you can surface that across an entire project later. But you can effectively, without having to maintain a separate register, you can create a concrete strength register within Visibuild and extract it all in bulk for every element on the job.
And that's a really important one we'll dig into in the filtering and how that process works. But it's just like Ryan said, we've got to make sure that you're collecting the information that you actually need to manage your process. Because one of the main ideas behind Visibuild is making sure that you're not having to run separate registers outside of your quality process. Everything should be managed through here. The next step here, as you can see, we've actually linked our partners and subcontractors into the process. So our formworker, steel fixer, PT contractor, building surveyor, all of them can be linked in. And you can see examples of where revisions have been updated and they can be replaced. We've got our services trades and the cast-in process. We've got the concrete pour and the placement process. And then, of course, we've got our post-pour checks, which lead us into Concrete Co and PT Construct for what they're doing for their post-pour closeout associated with this. It's also worth noting and reminding everyone that this audit log on the right here is really important. We do regularly see revision numbers, like 30 revisions for a concrete pour, pre and post pour document on a project is pretty normal, particularly as project teams are seeing opportunities to improve and make sure they're capturing and dealing with lessons learned. And all of those changes are audit logged against that activity fee. So once these have been created, and the creation process for building an inspection or creating a concrete pour out onto the project is pretty simple. And I'll give you a quick example of that now. So if I jumped into Tower 2, which is the Resi one, which doesn't have a lot of the pre-pours in it yet, we could simply select that template we were looking at before, suspended slab, hit next, and then we need to go look into Tower 2. Let's just look for pours. Now what I can do is go through the process of just selecting the locations. And you can see, because we can select and group by children, we can kind of go through the process now of bulk creating all of those inspections out to the locations. So once you've done the work and setting the process up, creating all of those inspections so they're available out in the field is a really simple process. We won't do that now. We'll discard that. But if we go back to what we're talking about today. So today we're working on level 9, pour 1 and pour 2. So we'll jump on a level 9 structure into the suspended slabs. We can see we've got locations for pour 1 and pour 2 there. And I can see that there's the inspections, here's our due dates, and this is what's happening on site right now. And so we're working on pour 1. If we click into pour 1, we'll get this little modal that'll come up to the top here. So by the way, if you click into the white space here, you're going to get that sidebar. This is a nice experience for being able to browse through and see what's happening. So you can dig into all the details here of exactly what's happening, what attachments are in the inspection. But clicking on the text there is going to bring up that modal, which will give us more details. And again, you get a bit of an experience on that left sidebar here, so you can drill into it. So we're going to see things like the structural engineers inspections, which we'll have a look at. We can obviously have a look at the reinforcement for the pre-pour and those other elements that need to be completed. And so if we have a look in here, we can see the formwork pre-pour is allocated to concreter. And so Ryan is our happy and form worker and steel fixer today.
G'day.
And so
I'm probably not doing the concrete trade
he's
justice.
absolutely the least qualified
jumper.
form worker and steel fixer we've ever met, but he's going to give it a go. So I'm going to change my screen over here now, and we'll share Ryan's mobile.
I'm going to have to connect again, I think. Hold on.
Yeah, I was going to say this will test our abilities. Let me try that again. Pause for effect. Treweek.
Yeah.
And we're back.
All right, here we go.
So Ryan's out in the field right now. We're working on level 9 pour 1 today. So how would you find your way there, mate?
Well, there's a few ways. I could either just I could go search and I could search for a location and I could go level 9 if I wanted to, under locations and go level 9 if that's what I wanted to do. I'm not going to do that. I could also go back and I could go through the main location tree, guessing. That'll get me to level 9 and that'll just show me what I need to work on. So none of the other rubbish, the sparky stuff or the plumbers. This is just, I'm living in concrete land. I could also go through your list as well. So nothing for me, but if I go to company, this should show me what's been assigned to my company. And so this is how I'll do it. I'll go into it there. This will bring up the wrong port. So that probably won't work. I'll do it the old fashioned way. And
Looks like you've been looking at Look at
I was trying to be too clever. What are you doing? Pour 1. Is that where you want me in?
Yes, please.
All right, here we go. Pour 1. And so you can see I am just going to go through the pre-pour and placement of this inspection. I will just go into area clean. So you can see, bring this up, confirm formwork's been clean sufficiently to take concrete placement. No chip packets, cigarette packets, like I've seen on some jobs in the when the formwork gets stripped. So all debris been removed. It's also probably one of the most common things that an engineer brings up in their report is that they'll always say, take photos to make sure that it's clean. In this case, I've got to do that. So I'll upload photos. I can either link existing or I can take some nice photos of our brand new veneer formwork, which is beautiful. I'm not going to mark it up, but you can take a number of photos there and attach them. I can add a comment if I want. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go close and I can keep going. So part concrete pump in a location for the designated area, line not to disturb formwork, reinforcement starter bars. That doesn't have any requirements. I could make some comments or I can attach some photos if I want. Otherwise, these are just prompts for you. There's some OH&S and environmental measures in place. So these things are just, PPE, MSDS sheets attached, all that type of stuff.
So the important thing here is you got no requirement to attach a photo here, but if you wanted to, you could hit that attach
button.
I
could hit attach and I could link existing or I could take a photo or I could choose one. I'll go again. Yep, so you can see it's attached now. And then I'll go close. So movement joints are in place in accordance with the structural specifications. Again, I can just close that out. Really quick and easy.
So there's an example there. There's probably only one thing I really want you to touch on when you scroll back up, Ryan. There was one there we've got as request review. So you said the whole point pour approval. So just scroll down a little bit there. And you can see for this one, for example, is not the ability to close here. So our employee's name currently is site supervisor. So in this situation, when you go and hit request review for that one, it's actually going to go notify whoever that individual is. They'll then have the ability to go and close that out. And so that could be an individual within this concreter account. It could also be an individual within another company. So you can set those assignees and review processes like that. That's probably, I think, enough. I think what's really important from a subbies perspective is that it's your experience. You get to see what you need to see relevant to your works. There is the ability to see more.
I could also add. Look, I could also add a Visi. Like if I'm the form worker and there's a problem with either, cast-ins that need to be provided or located and it's an issue that needs to be addressed before you can pour, you could also add that. And you could add that as an issue, or you can add it as a task for someone. You could assign it out to another trade if you need, or back on the builder, some cases if you wanted to. But just a note that you can do that.
And we'll have a look at that in the engineers model. So I'll share my screen now. We'll take over. Beautiful. So, oops. All right. So quickly, what I'll go through now is what it's like as the engineer. So similar experience to Ryan before. I'm now the structural engineer on the project. I've been called up and said it's time to go out and do the pre-pour inspection. I can jump into level 9 there, and I can see straight away it's simple as I've got 2 pours that I need to deal with. So structural engineer's inspection for pour 1, jump into that. It's a blank inspection. Now, this could be set up with a template with standard items that need to be reviewed as part of that. I can see my due date in there. I'm meant to have completed this inspection by tomorrow, so obviously the team's running ahead of program here, which is nice. But I'm going to walk the deck now and find out that some of the works are incomplete. So simple as hit that plus button, issue, incomplete works. Kill my phone. This is a problem you had before with the screen sharing.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Sorry, this is a problem with the fancy app we're trying to use to share onto the screen. It's always good testing new software out before the demo. Go back in there, hit plus, issue, incorrect works. This thing's broken for us.
I don't know.
That's embarrassing. We'll have to do that on the, I'll have to share it.
There it is.
It's just, there's something wrong with the screen.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on down there. Anyway, it's not working as it should because something's crashing the phone. Sorry about guys, we'll have to do that on the web app.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, is yours working?
I'm not logged in as the engineer, so that might be.
Yeah, that'll be a problem. We're running out of time. We'll show you that on the web application. We won't use this tool again to share our screen in demos. We'll go back to the web application. Apologies for that. It actually worked perfectly before. So if we jump into this pour now and we go into suspended slab pour 1, we can see the photos that Ryan was uploading when his mobile device worked through the share. And we can see, here's our office down here in Melbourne. Here's his beautiful formwork he was talking to before. Go through to the next one here. We can see area clean. I can click into that specific task and see the requirements. Like all debris has been removed, upload photos of completed pour area immediately. All of those requirements that he was completing out on the web app are now visible in the mobile app. Now, let's go into that structural engineer's inspection that wasn't working for me before. Obviously, they are doing this on the mobile, but not sharing their screen to a computer. They would go in, they would add an issue, they would have an incomplete works, and we will just say reinforcement incomplete. Now, they would take photos, attach that in there, and assign that back through to the builder. Great. So what that's done now is rather than the old process of having to write this all down on a piece of paper, go back to the office, create the PDF, send that back through and manage that site inspection report process, we are now creating all of those items that are there to be closed out as part of the site inspection report process in the structural engineer's inspection itself. So you can see there's one of those reinforcement items in there. As we continue to add them in, it's going to increase the number of items that need to be closed out for the overall pour.
And so you won't be able to close out the whole thing until they're addressed.
That creates this beautiful little catch net whereby this pour 1 now can't be closed out until we close out all of the items relevant to the structural engineer's inspection. Same thing applies to the building surveyor's inspection. Same thing applies, as Ryan was talking about before, if one of the trades has added an additional task, you might have some peculiar cast-ins that are specific only to this deck, that information can get included there as well.
And so practically what's the best thing about this is that the engineer's out on the deck, you're pouring at 7 a.m. the next day, or 6:30, if you're being cute with the council. And you want to get those issues that need to be remedied as soon as possible.
Yes.
So you can fix them while the engineer's leaving site. So you don't wait to get a structural engineer's report that comes through via email or some other way at 9:30 the next day, and the concrete's already on the deck.
Yes.
That's really one of the things where I think that Visibuild can help promote getting things done faster, rather than waiting for formal correspondence to come through in a lot of instances.
All right. I'll stop mucking around with that. Now,
let's go to the tracker, mate.
Let's have a look.
We
got 5 minutes left. Let's have a look at what you get out of this. So obviously, before we do that, I just want to really quickly dive into this. I'm at VisiPlace. I want to go into level 9. So we'll go to level 9 and we'll see everything that's happening there. Obviously, everything's included within the inspection. But if I filter out now, I just want to have a look at issues. And so now I can see there's that reinforcement item that we created before. Now we can use this same process here to filter out tasks. And so one of the perfect examples Ryan was talking about before was our concrete test results. So let's have a look at concrete test results.
I was talking about.
No, you're talking about mix? That's all right. I'll bring up concrete test results. So I can now see the concrete test results all relevant to level 9. But if we go to the top of the location tree, I can now see all of the concrete test results from every single pour happening on the project across the whole job. And so if I might want to have a look at those that are just closed, and then I can go through and actually start to see design strength confirmed, actual strength achieved, attach the concrete test result, it's been closed out. It can go through a review process if required. Now, let's have a look at the good stuff quickly. Obviously, we've done the work of building the inspection out. We've done the work out on site. What we get now is the ability to track and actually see how those works are progressing. So we have a look at level 9, that's suspended slab we were looking at before. We get that same view experience we had previously, but we can do this in a tracker. And so I've got the pre-pour here. We've got the post-pour. Expand the pre-pour out. You can also complete the requirements here. So it would be as simple as I could jump into mud map, complete requirements. You can drag and drop your mud map straight onto there and close that requirement out. And so then now anything you've included in there will be accessible when you're out in your mobile application. No different to the drawings, same thing. You can see there's a stack in here that I've already uploaded. We could jump in there, complete the requirements, pick an existing attachment, close that requirement out. You can also, interestingly, you can attach absolutely anything to a Visi. You can drag and drop directly into this attachments window here. So if there's anything you want to see out in the field, drag and drop it in there. That'll now be accessible to you out on site when you're managing the project. We spent a lot of time talking about the milestone tracker in the pre-sheet webinar. So again, jump back into that one if you missed anything. But if I go into level 9 now on the milestone tracker, I can see here's our 2 pours. We can see pour 1, everything that's linked to it and how far progressed we are through that process. If we click view on here, we'll see here's our mate Ryan from Concrete & Co. We've got
hanging out.
We've got expert engineering. So there's still one item outstanding. There's that item that I raised before as the engineer. And then we've got our new little tracker here, which is coming out shortly. And this is a very simple example, but I can now use this tracker to see across. I've set it up so I can see, I want to see all the children and I want to hide the empty locations. And I've got it filtered down to just showing this concrete pour. I can now see throughout all the levels, and if we drive on a level 9, I'll be able to see structure, suspended slab, pour 1 and pour 2. And so you would very quickly be able to see if you had locations that didn't have a pour. So let's show our dirty laundry here and turn off hide empty locations.
We've missed B3.
We've missed B3. We haven't got any pours on mezzanine. I can start to drill in, and I think we'll find that the upper levels here, we're missing quite a few. So we jump in level 9's not too bad. Level 10 structure, not too bad. Then you can see the upper levels there. There's nothing included from those inspections. So it's pretty clear now that that's outstanding. And so this is one of the drivers behind this new inspection tracker, has been that ability to see what's been created in status, but also find out where those gaps are on the projects of what you haven't been able to track.
Can you add multiple to that yet? Or is it just single? So could I add, oh, well, that's what you're
So this is an example.
I was going to say you could add precast install as well if you've got that as a separate inspection or a separate trade.
Yeah. Well, here's one I prepared earlier for our previous example of the pre-sheet. Done quite a bit of work in the pre-sheet process, petition set out, all the services trades rough in. And so now what you can see is this really nice example, and I think maybe the residential tower looks a little bit better, of all of the locations and how far they're progressing through those works. Similar experience to the other one. We get that nice little sidebar here. You can drive into a specific inspection, see the inspection itself, and everything that's relevant to it. Now, I'm conscious we've used up everyone's time talking too much shit, as we always do. Anything critical you think we've missed today, mate?
Uh, what else were you going to show? I don't think so. I think you've like,
I'm really
you've pulled it
smart.
back on program in a amazing amount of time. I don't know if we've got any questions from the floor. Like we
We
missed them last time.
actually,
We
again,
can
we've got
probably come back to you. If you do have questions,
make sure it's sent
drop them
through
in.
because it's not coming through on our end here.
I can't see them.
Yeah.
Flying blind here.
We are absolutely flying by.
Um,
Good technical issues today.
but if you do have questions that have come out of something you've seen and what we've just shown you, please fire them through. We will come back to you personally and answer them. We can probably share them when we send out the recording for this. But yeah, by all means, if any of you are approaching, or it doesn't really matter what stage you're at, but you're looking to improve the way you're tracking your concrete pours, whether they are horizontal or vertical, please send them through or reach out to us and we can come help you take it to another level if you want to. But it's very important. Probably, I mean, the other thing that we don't talk about, but it's probably in the formwork pre-pour is like just your formwork engineer sign-offs. Like it is high risk activity. Like deck collapses are probably one of the scariest things you can ever see, and they do happen. And you know, usually a temporary engineer hasn't been out to inspect things before it's happened, or they've missed something.
I've just taken the moment of Ryan's monologue there to raise a quick issue on the mobile app when I wasn't screen sharing, so it actually works. And you can see there's like that incorrect Rio issue I've created against our structural engineers inspection. We drive into that. And there we can see our incorrect reinforcement there logged against that.
I have a question for the field. Like, what's a good size for like a typical size, I don't know, 400 square meter pour? Like, how many attachments are you seeing in these things?
Hundreds. So absolutely been blown away by the volume of information that people are recording. But because we've got all the parties and stakeholders relevant to a slab in the pour and in the process and in the one platform, we are regularly seeing 400, 500, 600 photos against an individual pour. And surprisingly, that includes core elements, where previously a lot of that has been hidden. People don't really see inside of that process. The other stuff is precast. Obviously, the precast process is really nice in being able to see what's happening out in the yard. And there's a pretty good example of how that looks, particularly when you can start to track that through the precast manufacture process. And again, like how often did we get to see out in the yards of what precast panels were being produced? But not only that, we're now doing the pre and post pour inspections out in the yard. So we've got a manufacture status for all our precast panels. So anyway, I think that's enough to wrap it up here. Like, obviously, we can talk about this for hours and we're happy to go through it in detail with anyone who wants to dig further into it. But that was a quick way to give a highlight of what works well in Visibuild now and what's coming. Thanks everyone for joining us.